everyone. This is Time with Father. I wanted to start tonight by just asking a simple question, which is, how many of you have ever experienced that you know you're supposed to have a greater love for somebody in your life, but that love isn't really there? Or it's growing weaker, and you know it's diminishing day by day. I think it's a very common experience that all of us go through. There are people in our lives, friends, family, whether it's parents or a spouse or a child or a sibling, whatever the case might be, people who we know we're supposed to have a great love for, and it's just not really there. It's not as strong as it should be. And the question might come to mind, how can I stir up a greater love for this person? How can I better things? How can I make this situation better? So I wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight. And I wanted to specifically talk about this question of love in relation to sacrifice. Sister Elizabeth of the Trinity has this great phrase or this saying that goes simply, sacrifice is nothing else than love put into action. Sacrifice is love in action. And I mention that because it's very clear to us when we have a love for somebody, a very deep and profound love for somebody, we're ready and willing to sacrifice for them. We see it all the time. When you see a young couple, a newly wedded couple, or when you see close and intimate friends, they're more than happy to make a sacrifice for that person that they love. And the stronger the love, the more willing they are to make a sacrifice. That's why we have this, the proverbial willingness for the young man to travel all the way across the world in order to, acquire something for his beloved. Love means sacrifice. However, it goes both ways. What do I mean by that? Well, sacrifice isn't only a manifestation of love. It's not just an effect of a very deep love. Sacrifice is also a cause of a deeper love. And that's what we have to come back to. Because too often, maybe 10 or 20 years after their marriage, you have spouses who, again, they admit, they realize, my love for my spouse isn't what it used to be. Our relationship is just is dull. It's lost its savor. I don't really relish this person's company anymore. I don't look forward to being in their presence. I don't look forward to speaking with them. I'm losing my real genuine love and affection for the person. What can I do? And I think there's something to be said for this idea. What did you used to do? What did you used to do when you truly and deeply loved the person? What sort of sacrifices were you ready and willing to make for the other? And then remind yourself of those things and start making those sacrifices again here and now. Sure, it won't come as easily, and it might even feel a little bit disingenuous, if that's even a word. It might feel like it's not really real. Like it might feel a little bit forced or artificial. But there's something to this idea of, as the saying goes, fake it until you make it. But it's not fake. It's not artificial. Because even if this natural affection and love for a person is dwindling and is diminishing, we can rely upon that supernatural charity, that real deep supernatural love for the person, which must always be there. And that goes above the natural level and must always persist, even if our natural love and affection for the person is completely gone and we can't stand the person and their presence is so bothersome to us, and just any kind of the smallest conversation with them is just unbearable. We probably all know people like that. still, we have to have a supernatural love for that person. And so that supernatural love should prompt us to be making sacrifices for the other. But again, we will find that the more sacrifices we make for the other, the more we will begin to cherish once again that person and that relationship with that person. We will want what is best for that other. Because by sacrificing for them and for their good, we in our mind, we're putting that person and their good and their virtue and their salvation up on a pedestal once again in our mind, and reminding ourselves that this is something worthwhile. This person's salvation and my helping them get to heaven is something worthwhile. It is something noble, something wonderful, something great, something worth striving for and making sacrifices for. And that will foster, again, that love within us. Love means sacrifice. I can't emphasize that enough. Because it's far, far too often that it happens that, you come across these, young adults who are dating or, engaged couples and they are far too willing, unfortunately, to break this rule. And if they really kept in mind this reality, this truth that love means sacrifice, things will go much better for them in their relationship. Because what happens, they lose sight of this and they start to twist the meaning of love, and their love in the relationship becomes something completely different and something that's actually not love at all, because it doesn't have sacrifice at the heart and soul of it. What do I mean? Well, when a young man and a young lady start in their relationship to lose this idea, this notion of sacrifice, and this love must mean I'm ready to sacrifice what I want, what my desires and inclinations are, for the good of the other. And if love doesn't mean that, then just call it something else. If your relationship with the other person isn't founded on this readiness to, sacrifice what I want, sacrifice my goods, my inclinations, my likes and dislikes, my concerns, for the good of the other, to preserve the virtue of the other, to help the other get to heaven, if it doesn't mean that, then don't call it love. Call your relationship something else. Call it some sort of, just utilitarian relationship where we know each other and you give me what I want and I'll give you what you want, and each of us gets out of the other what we're looking for, and then we leave and part ways. Okay, sure, that's fine. Call it that. Don't call it love. It's not love. Love means sacrifice. And again, too often we see that, these young dating couples or engaged couples, and, they take liberties with each other that are not good, that are not Catholic, that are not virtuous, and they expose each other to danger. And they even sometimes, commit sins with each other. And they say, what would be their reasoning behind it? And they would say, oh, well, I do it because I love the other person. I wanted to show them that I love them. I'm sorry. You did everything except that. You did everything except show the other person that you have any love for them. Again, why? Love means sacrifice. Love means I want what's best for you regardless of what it's going to cost me. And what are these actions that you've done? Well, they say the complete opposite. They say, I see something good for myself that I can get out of you, and I don't care what it costs you for me to get that. I'm ready to force you to undergo that sacrifice of what's good for you in order for me to get something out of you. And they're doing that together, and it's something mutual, this just mutual self-seeking through the other. That's not love. It's not love. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, and if there are people out there who unfortunately are in a situation where they are given to such things, but call it something else. You are saying everything except I have any deep love for you when you engage in such kind of interactions with another. Love must mean sacrifice. It's not without reason that Christ to show us the love of God for us, what does he do? He sacrifices himself. He sacrifices himself in the most unspeakable way imaginable by dying the bloody and agonizing death of the cross for us. And that's why Christ came to earth. Christ came to be this visible incarnation, manifestation of God's infinite love for us. And how does he do it? How does he show it? Through sacrifice. Through sacrifice. At the center of our religion, our faith, is the love of God for us. And that's why at the center and heart and soul of our faith is a sacrifice. The sacrifice of Christ on Calvary for us. And that's how we make that return to God. That's how we show our love for God, is by entering into that sacrifice of Christ, uniting our sufferings in union with his to the Father for our salvation and for the salvation of other souls as well. To glorify our Father by showing him our great love for him, by making some small return of love to him for all that he's shown towards us. Love means sacrifice. And so with this Feast of Pentecost coming, I just wanted to end with one little last consideration. This Feast of Pentecost, the Feast of the Holy Ghost, St. Paul says that the charity of God is poured forth into our souls through the Holy Ghost who is given to us. The charity of God, this love of God, is poured forth into our soul through the Holy Ghost who is given to us, who dwells within us. And so it's a great time to ask just for the grace of, to know how to love. That might sound cheesy, that might sound sappy or sentimental. I don't mean it in that way. To ask God on this Feast of Pentecost to know how to actually love others. To know how to love God. To know how to love yourself properly. To know how to truly love others, which means to truly want what's best for them and to be ready to sacrifice everything for that person, to get that good, to save their soul, and to glorify God. Have a good night, and we hope to see you in the next video. God bless.